What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of That Time in Hip Hop, episode number 14. Uh, Show about the nostalgia, the times, the songs, the music, the artists, the movers, shakers, you know what I'm saying, the tastemakers, whatever you want to say. But more importantly, the preservation of hip hop music and culture. I am your host, Vegas of Hip Hop Now podcast. I have with me, like every week, Tony from IntoTheDome.com. What's good, bro?
Everything is good, man. As we do, sipping something cold and juicy, my brother.
Oh, yo, that don't look like water, man. That don't look like water this time. What's
It's not, but it is cold.
Look, you know this is a black podcast. Like we got jars and shit. We ain't no glass. You lucky it ain't no red cups in here.
Right, that's right.
That
And
means
look,
it's straight. If it's in a red cup, it's straight. You know what I'm saying?
it's a cultural thing. I'm in North Carolina, you upstate in Jersey, New York area, and we still got our
Mhm.
jars, baby.
Exactly. And to let people of other races know, it used to be candy in that shit. Just in case you want to know, we just washed it. You know what I'm saying?
Preserve.
But if you're watching for the first time, you know what I'm saying, we do appreciate you coming through and checking out this podcast. If you're a returning viewer or listener that listens to the audio podcast, we appreciate you also. But you got to do us a favor, man. You got to subscribe if you like what you hear, what you see, what you learn. You got to hit that like button to let us know that you like that specific episode. That informs us that we're on the right path as far as the content we choose. And more importantly, share it with people and comment, because when you leave a comment, we're not afraid to engage with the people who watch this podcast. And when you leave a comment, that tells us not only that you care about the topic, but that you have opinions also, because it's not just about what we think. Hip hop is a community. You know what I'm saying? It started as a community and it continues that way through this conversation and preservation of the culture and the music we love so much. You know what I'm saying? And to get right into things, as we do on here, we like to do a segment called This Week in Hip Hop. And this week in hip hop, an album that, I listened to actually this day, today. If you're from the future, get your ass out of here. But that's Main Source's Breaking Adams album, released on July 23rd of 1991. Tone, Main Source, Breaking Adams, 1991. Looking at the front door, Large Professor. What did you think when you first came across the group, and then when they dropped the album?
Man, what's funny is watching like BT. I saw looking out the front door video, and I was like, yeah, that's a nice little track. I like the beat, I like the sample. I thought it was a cool little joint about, walking out on your chick because you're tired of her BS or whatever. And it was kind of like women always make songs about being tired of dudes, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
Lost Professor was like, I'm looking out the front door, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it was just a dope song, man. I remember during that time, I got the tape and I heard the track now that's legendary, Live at the Barbecue. And they had this young kid on there named Nasty Nas, and his verse is still uh memorized by fans all over the world, man. I went to hell for snuffing Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the biggest shock value maybe in hip hop history if you really think about that. And so yeah, it was a legendary track. Looking Out the Front Door is a classic, a dope single. I remember the song Just Hanging Out, and Faking the Funk was a dope video, man. And the other MC, a part of Main Source, rhymed on that one too. Real intense cat. His name escapes me right now, but man, the Main Source is very dope. Breaking Adams got a lot of 5-star reviews back then, and it's still looked at as one of the most important albums of the early '90s in East Coast hip hop. And Large Professor at that time became one of the most sought out producers in New York. And a lot of people don't know at that time, Large Professor had done some work with Eric B. and Rakim and a lot of other artists, Cool G Rap and such. So yeah, man, he put a staple on hip hop with that Main Source's debut album. Not Live at the Barbecue, but Breaking Album. Excuse me. But yeah, I enjoyed it, man. I named some of my favorite songs already, man. I really love Faking the Funk. You know what I'm saying? During that time, also about a year later, he recorded Halftime with Nas for the
Mhm.
Zebrahead soundtrack, and of course, Halftime ended up being a track on Illmatic, Nas' debut album. So a lot of things spawned from Main Source, and Akinelli actually, kind of got put on somewhat by Large Professor, and he ended up making a couple of hits right after Breaking Adams as well.
Yeah, man. Like when I was listening to Breaking Adams today, like my first thought, and I went ahead and tweeted it out to people at Vegas World INC, that it's an album that aged pretty well. Like obviously, there's some songs on there that I'm kind of like, or skip. But there are albums like that. You have classic albums that have skippable records. That's not
Yeah,
unknown. But just the vibe and Large Professor's delivery was unlike anyone else. Like I remember my first experience with Main Source was seeing the Looking at the Front Door video.
mm-hmm.
And like it kind of caught me off guard because I had never seen a rapper like Large Professor. Like he had an afro and he had glasses and like he had like just a mustache, like the
Yeah,
fire joint, and it was kind of off-putting because most rappers didn't really look like that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And I heard that beat and just his delivery is so commanding, and you get his conviction in his words that he grabs your attention. So as I'm listening to this album, and obviously some of my favorite songs like Friendly Game of Baseball, just hanging
yeah,
out, what I'm saying, live at the barbecue, looking at the front door. Peace is word. Like
yeah,
these records that you know, don't really kind of go underappreciated besides those of us that lived it, you know what I'm saying? That can appreciate it. But it's one of those albums that don't get brought up that often when people talk about classic material, especially from the 90s.
yeah,
And it was so different, you know what I'm saying? And like you said, he introduced the game to Nas, he introduced the game to Akinelli. Um, and he went on to be he has situations as far as his solo career with record labels and stuff like that. But as far as people knowing him, for the most part, knowing him as a producer, and you got to salute that man. You got to salute that album, debut album, Main Source, Break It Adams, 1991. If you are a Nas fan, especially if you're a Nas fan who wasn't around for Illmatic, or wasn't really around or into it yet when it was written, came out. Maybe you still mad at Godson style. Breaking Adams, that was like the first introduction to Nas when he was Nasty Nas. Real quick, if you want to know a personal story, around that time, Ill Will was still alive.
right.
And I remember when he played it and he thought I Went to Hell for Snuffing Jesus was the funniest shit he ever heard in his life.
Word up.
Yeah, like he was excited about that line specifically. And I remember, I'm younger, and I remember feeling kind of conflicted because I'm kind of like, yeah, but ain't he going to hell? Like, how does this work?
Right, right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things, but he was supportive of his friend, what I'm saying? He was hyped. His friend got placement on an official album. But again, if you're a Nas fan, man, and you don't know Live at the Barbecue, you gotta do your homework. So salute to that album, coming out in 1991. But now we get to a related topic, but the main topic of that time in hip hop. So get your pencils ready, get your ears ready. Maybe you're going to go back and listen to it, but we're going to talk about it. Tone, tell them about tonight's or today's, whatever it may be, topic for that time in hip hop.
That time in hip hop is when the Firm album was released. And
Mm,
look, man, it was so anticipated. It was released on October 21st, 1997. So, 97 is the, October, Biggie and Pop are gone. You know what I'm saying? Puffy and Mason, everyone is running the airwaves. It's
yeah.
pre DMX and pre the huge rise of Jay-Z. I mean, Reasonable Doubt was out and it was around the volume one time, but nobody had really taken over New York outside of Puffy and Mace doing a lot of remixes. And the mafioso style of 1995 and 96 was still kind of popular. So the firm kind of followed that trend after Cuban Links and Nas. It was written. So real quick, the firm obviously is Nas, Escobar, Az Sosa, originally Cormega and Foxy Brown. It ended up being a cat from Queens named Nature taking over. We'll get into some of the situation with the firm and Nature in a few minutes. But you could kind of see the firm developing. It was written on affirmative action. So they already
Yeah.
had their group song on Nas. It was written, of course, it was written. Nas was Escobar anyway. So he kind of went full-fledged Escobar. But he had already called himself Escobar on Eye for an Eye on Mobb Deep Infamous album the year before that. A lot of people
Exactly.
don't realize that he was Nas Escobar moving on your reproduction. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
man.
So he was already saying that calling himself Escobar on Mobb Deep's Infamous, well not debut, but sophomore album. So anyway, going into it was written, you could just see the group starting to form on affirmative action, and they took that into a bunch of freestyles on like Clue and a bunch of other DJs at the time. You were starting to hear that group, what I'm saying, some freestyles over some beats, and it was AZ and Nas and Meg and everyone. So then, real quick, the firm being predominantly produced by Dr. Dre, that relationship started on. It was written as well on the track Nas is Coming.
Mm-hmm.
Now, during that time, East Coast, West Coast still ain't really vibing like that. So you can hear Dr. Dre say, "Hey, what's up, Nas? Smoke some of this chronic. Let's get this money together to get that East Coast, West Coast." That's all it was written in '96. The year before the firm, they already talking about the allegiance and let's get off of that East Coast, West Coast. Well, during that time, Snoop was already kind of having some problems with Suge and Death Row. Snoop was starting to have some issues with Tupac because he didn't really pledge allegiance and like this Biggie and Puff. At the same time, Dr. Dre was already like 1 foot out the door of Death Row. So he wasn't really rolling with Suge and Pac and nobody at the time. He had already started working on the aftermath and working with Nas on It Was Written, and I guess they probably started some pre-firm meetings and vibing and things of that nature, getting a feel for each other.
Yeah.
So that kind of alienated Dr. Dre from probably dealing with some West Coast cats at the time. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, he was about getting this money and working with some dope artists because he's a producer and an engineer. He want to make dope music. You know what I'm saying? I think he was also tired of all that ruckus on the West Coast with, Pac was kind of keeping a lot of stuff stirred up, and Suge probably had a batter in his back, and Snoop was tired of it as well. So that's what happened. So moving on along to the Firm album, man, I still remember that Firm Biz and Phone Tap coming out as the two singles, man, and I was like, they owned to something. That's before I heard the album at the time, but I was like, I think they owned to something. And what was your first initial thought when you first heard any tracks by the Firm?
Well, like for me, it was a little bit different because, like you said, it was written, and that song, Nas is Coming, being the first time Nas, and really, I think the first time a cat from the East Coast worked with Dr. Dre.
Yeah, it was for the most
You know
part.
what I'm saying? And you can tell that Dr. Dre had a lot of admiration for Nas as a producer. But I wasn't the biggest fan of Nas is Coming because it sound off to me for some reason. It wasn't bad. It just, I don't know. I just didn't feel like the two meshed well, but it wasn't, I appreciate it more now than I did back then.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of how I felt. So when I knew Dr. Dre was going to be rumored to doing this Firm album, I still felt a little indifferent because for me around that time, and I was in college, we was heavy on the mixtapes, and the Firm as a group was heavy on the mixtapes.
Yeah,
There's Firm
yeah,
freestyles that Nas on there throwing shots. You know what I'm saying? I think that's some of that early Jay-Z shots. If not, it was meant for Big. One of
Or
the
it was that Affirmative Action remix was meant for Big.
yeah. That one definitely was. But there was one in particular uh, with over the symphony beat, and I
Yeah,
believe Big was already gone by then. And that's when he was like, he was clearly talking to Jay-Z, you know, have your crew graft a mural of your picture on your building. Like, I was
yeah,
like, oh, yo, who you talking about, Jay-Z? Uh,
yeah,
but like the firm was burning down these kinds of freestyles. And like you said, the anticipation was there because like Foxy was hot, even though
yeah.
Jay-Z was also rating some of her stuff. AZ was hot and Nas was high. And really, for a minute, that was the firm to us.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? That's who we looked at as the firm, and we was looking like, man, you know, has this ever happened really? Like, yeah, we know we had the Juice Crew, but we didn't have them as a group. You know, we knew they was together and they worked together, but not as an actual group. So, you know, the freestyles already had me ready. The affirmative action remix and all that had me ready. And then obviously the addition of Core Mega and eventually Nature. The album was highly anticipated. I'm not one of those dudes from the 90s who hated the whole mafioso thing. I mean, rap is entertainment like anything else. And if a rapper wants to stray from you know, what he did before as an artist to do something different. And like you said, Tone, the first time I hear Escobar is on Eye for an Eye, which is crazy. One of the best verses of all time from like all of them. And then the next time I hear or see any thing about Escobar, it's on Verbal Intercourse. That got, I believe, you know, verse of the month in the source or
It
whatever.
is. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like don't let people lie to you from the past, because somebody like to do these, you know, they like to do these revisionist past where they remember what they want to remember. Everybody was on board with Nas Escobar. If there was one dude, literally it was one dude that did not like it. For the most part, Nas was improving as a lyricist.
Uh-huh.
EZ was right there with him. Foxy was ill. It was a perfect combination, man. And like I guess we can kind of get into where it led, but when the addition of, let's talk about this, you know, because we had Foxy, we had Nas, we had AZ, they're all white hot, they all dope. It's the height of everything. They got Dr. Dre backing them, and then they add Core Mega. When you first heard Core Mega with this group, what were your thoughts?
Okay, so initially I wasn't mad. I was kind of excited. The reason why is because the year before that, Foxy Brown's debut Il Nana, she had like a interlude on there with this dope beat and Mega, and they introduced Mega on Foxy Brown's Il Nana album. And that little verse she had over that beat, and if I want to say the beat ended up being the same beat Jay-Z used, almost a decade later on Lyrical Exercise. You know what I'm saying? But Core Mega
Yeah,
rapped over
it's
that.
a Core Mega song
That's
also.
Cormega song. So
That's
Cormega rhymed over his track on Fox Ill Nine. And I was like, yeah, dude, voice all right. Song sound kind of dope. And I remember Nas talking about him on One Love. What's up with Cormega? Did y'all see him? Are y'all together? So I'm like, okay, he's a Queens dude, and on Foxy joint. Okay, maybe this is a good match. And then I heard him on a couple of freestyles with Nas and AZ and everybody. I'm like, yeah, dude is all right. I ain't mad at it. You know what I'm saying? But before the album dropped, situations happened with a contract, if I'm not mistaken, and Mega wasn't feeling the situation. I think with some business stuff with Nas and the record label. You know what I'm saying? But I think he just kind of expressed his feelings towards it. But then he said, next thing you know, he saw the cover of the magazine YSB, and they got the firm on there, and they got the firm and Nature. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of like, I guess I ain't in the firm no more. So I mean, it's kind of like I think I want maybe Steve Stout put him out. I don't know, but he ended up being pushed to the side, and maybe he was having some other legal problems, other things going on right now because his debut album ended up getting pushed for the next 2 or 3 years. But anyway, um, I wasn't mad at Mega ended up being one of the people in the group, and then I was kind of shocked when he was out. I never heard of Nature before, you know what I'm saying? But I tell you, man, when I finally got the album. I remember giving it a first listen through. I was like, okay, let me listen some more. But one thing did stand out. I said, whoever that damn Nature is, dude can rap. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I mean, he was in pocket with Nas and AZ, and this is at the height of Nas and AZ getting it in. And Nature was right there on par.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Again, to go back to the mixtape thing, I knew about Nature because he was on the mixtapes affiliated with them,
Right,
but it was in that gray area where it was kind of like, wait, he's a part of the firm, and now Core Mega isn't. Because I'm not even gonna lie, the first time I heard Core Mega, I felt like, yo, this dude can't really rap based off of flow.
right.
Um, because it just, you can't be next to these dudes, and even Foxy, whose flows are so refined and on point. You stand out like a sore thumb.
His
And like you
lyrics were
said,
dope.
Nature is kind of
Yeah.
fit right into that mold. But I kind of knew, Nature was in the wings of that, and I thought maybe he was going to be like with them, with Cormega. But when they made the switch, which is probably one of the worst switches ever, because when you look at the album cover, I mean, even to the point, I believe there was a song that I don't think made the album that had Cormega and Nature on it. I don't know if it was what is that?
Well,
The
it was
whatever.
not familiar. Not familiar. There's two versions of La Familia. One of them has both of them on it, if I'm not mistaken, and one of them doesn't have Mega on it at all.
Okay, so that's what it was. It was that where, I thought Nature was a part of it. But Tone, when you think about it though, that's kind of the whole tone of this album, no pun intended, uh, where you're kind of like, well, who the fuck is that? And who the fuck is this? And who the fuck is that? As you listen to the album, because this album didn't really consist of only these artists. It was like a group of individuals, mostly to some unknown. When you got your hands on the Fern album, and you listen from the first track to the last track, which I think is 18 tracks, including interludes and intros in total, I believe. What were your thoughts when you finally got the Firm album in your hands?
Like I said, I gave it a listen, and there's a few tracks on there I really love. And to be honest with you, I believe there are 18 tracks. If you would have downsized the Firm album to about 12 tracks, I mean, that would have been a very dope album because it had a lot of dope songs on there. The lyrics on there were amazing. You had this track Desperados with Cannabis on there, man. A lot of people that were trying to do songs with Cannabis at that time because he'll destroy you on the track. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So that's why I give respect to the Firm and I give respect to Common. You know what I'm saying? One day it all makes sense. He had a track with Cannabis on there where he went line for line with Cannabis. But, that Cannabis on there now, just real quick, you were talking about just a lot of people they were affiliated with, Wiz and Half a Meal and a couple other guys were on there that the average fans had never heard of. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of a block party. Nori was on there as well, but he was starting to rise because of CNN. But he wasn't famous yet. So you did have a few people on there who didn't have big names yet, man. But one thing you did have is you had Nas and AZ, who were killing it at the time, man. So I thought lyrically it was dope. I thought the production was handled by Dre and the Track Masters. And again, the Track Masters get a lot of flack, man, but they absolutely gave Nas gems on It Was Written, and there was a couple of gems on this track on this album as well. So I thought it was a solid album. It wasn't great. It should have been great. It should have been legendary. To me, it should have been like only good for Cuban links to me. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? But when you throwing some stuff together, they probably did a lot of stuff back and forth, a lot of traveling, East Coast, West Coast, trying to get it right. Sometimes you overthink stuff. You know what I'm saying? I think that they just went organic and even kept some of the unreleased tracks that are unreleased now, but some of the tracks they left off the album. I don't know if it was a sampling thing or whatever, but if you take a few tracks off of the original Firm album and add in the La Familia and add in the Everyday Thing, man, and also add in the track called Time. You
yeah,
put these three tracks on anybody listening, YouTube, Time by the Firm, La Familia, two versions, and Everyday Thing. and let us know what you think about those 3 tracks because they didn't make the album. And I was very disappointed. When I finally heard those tracks, over a decade ago, I was like, why didn't this make the damn album? You know what I'm saying? But I thought it was solid, but there was a lot to be desired because of the talent level of the MCs. And when I looked at some of the tracks, that Foxy Brown solo song could have been left off. Elf somebody else. It was terrible. That song, I think Hardcore. You took that 80s joint. Didn't need that song. You know what I'm saying? So there's a few songs on there like that you could have taken off. But man, the dope joints, I'm leaving with Noriega. You know what I'm saying? 5 minutes to flush, man, with Nature killed that song, man, with that old I think Houdini
Houdini.
uh
I know.
joint, man. And yeah, Phone Tap, of course, is Dr. Dre's best beat on here to me that he did. Phone Tap was dope. Phone Tap hit the streets pretty hard as the second single and a dope video and stuff like that. So I thought it was solid, man. What's your thoughts on that album, babe?
I was disappointed, to be honest. And even listening to it recently kind of brought a lot of those feelings back because, like you said, it was highly anticipated. It featured Nas, AZ, and Foxy at the height of their powers. Nature at the height of his. And it was so, as a complete project, discombobulated because
Right.
when it starts, it's the real mafioso vibe, you know what I'm saying, with the intro, with them repurposing scenes from mafia movies like dialogue or monologues, if you think about
Right.
it, to fit, themselves, and even the production on the first 2 or 3 tracks. I think the first 2 tracks kind of played to that theme. So you kind of feel like, oh, well, that's what this is. And in some cases, it's almost not lyrically, but in some cases, the tone is kind of like real low key for these blockbuster artists. And then the tone switches up because of, like you said, you got Dre kind of going with that mafia theme wholeheartedly. And then you got Trackmasters kind of doing what they did when it was written.
Let
So
me
it's,
say this, babe.
what's that?
Let me say this real quick,
Yeah.
if you will. So when you say something about that intro, 'cause I'm just looking at it real quick. The intro did set the tone, and then Firm Fiasco went right into it, and to that same vibe when AZ came in, 2000 Fallen Angels. We balling from every angle. You know what I mean? He just kind of came in killing it. Then the Phone Tap intro came in, and then Phone Tap came on. Then Executive Decisions came on. Still got the vibe going, and then first Firm Family came on, track 6. So the first 6 songs or intros slash whatever interludes were perfect for the vibe of the firm. This is where they made the crucial mistake that killed the album in terms of what it could have been. Track number 7, Firm All Stars, terrible. Track number 8, Fuck Somebody Else. Track number 9, track number 8, intro, and then 9 is the F Somebody Else. Track number 10 is Hardcore, I just said it was terrible. And track number 11, you go back into Untouchable. So you have like 4 songs in the middle of the album that totally threw the vibe of the album off. I'm not sure what they were thinking about right here. Because if you take them out and start back with 5 minutes to flush intro and then 5 minutes to flush, then you go right into Desperado's intro and Desperado's track. And then the firm bids, okay, you can leave that on. That's your single. And then I'm leaving with Noriega. And then Throw Your Guns up with Half a Meal. You take that middle section of the album off, man. You got a real dope project.
Yeah, because it felt like the momentum was derailed. You know what I'm
It
saying? It
was the
felt
real.
like you was listening to something else, and then you're tuning. You're basically buying in because Nas, AZ, and Foxy are on the cover. That's what you're buying into. But now you hearing Pretty Tone, which is Foxy's brother or whatever his name is. Even though I didn't mind the Wiz record that much, you're just hearing these different voices in the middle of this momentum. You know what I'm saying? When it probably should have just been Nori and Cannabis, maybe. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because you already had 4 other MCs. Even though the Half a Mil is crazy.
Right, it is.
Especially his second verse.
Yeah,
Nuts.
his have real nice.
Yeah,
Rest in
exactly.
peace, right? He's rest in
Rest
peace.
in
He
peace.
was nice.
Exactly. And another thing about Half a Mil, you know what I'm saying, the producer he worked with, rest in peace to him also. You know what I'm saying? Worked on my second demo. The whole situation with them two, the whole just bad, man. But
Oh man.
thinking about the firm situation, you know, that's just kind of how I felt. I felt like, damn, you know, it's kind of like you missed the mark. Like you had everybody's attention, including and this is before he passed, but Big, Jay-Z, and Charlie Baltimore, because they were coming up with the commission, you
That's
know,
right.
as a result of the firm.
Mm-hmm.
But it just didn't hit the mark, and then people place blame on, you know, the MCs. They place blame on Dr. Dre, feeling like, you know, well, that's not what he usually do, so why is he making these kinds of beats? But like Tone stated, if you take out those tracks that tonally don't fit the theme and you bunch together the ones that do, it's a totally different project. Especially when you add the unreleased joints
Oh my goodness.
that are nuts. Like,
Nuts.
they are ridiculous records that did not make the album. Um, you know, then you in the classic category, you
Yeah,
know?
we're talking about something special then.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just unfortunate because at the time, you know, we was just so hyped for it, and for it not, you know, I had to
And
listen a couple of times.
you know what? A lot of other MCs, like you said, were excited about it as well. When you think about Big and them starting commission, but even with Jay-Z on Volume One on that track, he said "Tits firm like Nature, Nature, Fox and Nas and AZ." You know what I'm saying? Like, so people recognize the firm, people respected the firm. You know, AZ was coming off his, do or die debut. He's working on Pieces of a Man and end up dropping about 8, 9, 10 months after the firm album. Foxy was working on her sophomore album. Nas was still riding high off It Was Written, which to me still a classic. It was already over 2 million sold. Still his high sold album uh, of his career. You know what I'm saying? He was still, he had just done tracks with on Cuban Links and the Infamous the year before that. So when people thinking about the success of the album, well, that's another whole discussion because the Firm album sold 147,000 records the first week and end up selling 1 million copies. So it's a platinum album. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So that's why Dre said on the Chronic 2001, or the Firm flop. You know what I'm saying? Like he like, oh, the Firm flop. Like he
Mhm.
like, nah, it didn't flop. Whether you like it or not, we went over 1 million with the Firm. You know what I'm saying? So the Firm was a success. It's just that for hip hop purists, we expected it to mesh together better. We expected the track listing to be better, and we expected a little bit of better production on some of the songs. So that's why it left a lot to be desired. I said it was just solid. Solid is not great. It's not a great album. Unfortunately, I wish I could say it was a great album, but it did have 3 or 4 great songs and 3 or 4 good songs and 3 or 4 songs that stuck to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of times, like you said, hip hop purists, you know, because of the failures of the Firm album, and obviously the 800-pound gorilla Illmatic, which you wasn't that far removed from when that came out, they hate Nas Escobar.
Right.
Like Nas, they like Nasty Nas, they like Went to Hell for Stuff for Jesus Nas, but they didn't like Mafioso Nas, you know, Street Dreams Nas, you know, Street Dreams Remix Nas, I should say. They didn't like that Nas, but at the end of the day, like you said, Tone, man, like, I mean, you listen to the first track on here where they're
They spit like crazy.
spitting like crazy. Dr. Dre got the perfect theme. You know, the vibe is there, but it just as a plan, whoever, and I don't remember, I believe Nas is the executive producer.
Yeah,
Maybe,
Nas, Dre, and I think Tone and Pope
yeah,
and Steve Stout.
it's on them because they are the ones who look at the collection of records and say these are the ones that can go, and this is the
Well,
arrangement.
and you know what? And that's the part that kind of baffles me to a degree because Dr. Dre is very meticulous. If you think about the way he sequenced the Chronic, the way he sequenced the NWA albums, and the way he sequenced Snoop Dogg album, you know what I'm saying, Doggy Style, it's like I want to say that maybe Steve Stout or the track masters might have said, okay, track 7 through 10, we just want to leave that on there. I wonder how Dr. Dre felt about the track listing because he had to share that responsibility with Nas. So of course, he can't do a track listing for shit. You know what I'm saying? So we know that. But what about Steve Stout and the track masters? You know what I'm saying, or what have you? So it might have been too many hands in it. That's kind of why I felt like a big salad. You know what I'm saying? Instead of like a nice 3-course meal, the firm is like a damn big ass salad, man, because you got so many people involved when you really need one executive producer. When you think about, okay, Puffy executive produced Ready to Die. He didn't make the beats, but he executive produced it. And the RZA, even though he make the beats, he sequenced 36 Chambers. He sequenced Forever, Liquid Swords, Cuban Links, Iron Man, all even the Supreme Clientele. He only got like 2 beats on there, but he just produced. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? So he said, we're gonna put one, we're gonna put Saturday, what we're gonna sequence it like this or the flow. And I think that middle part of this album that they just totally screwed it up, man. Unfortunately, because these guys spit on that album, man. Fox, they sound good lyrically.
Yeah, and look, you kind of broke it down when you think about the records you said that can go. Those are the records that most likely, because of who produced them and the situations that Steve Stout and Trackmasters was saying need to be there. Because everything that sounds like Dre had a vision of the firm, the mafioso part, what they should rhyme about, what it should sound like, the instruments that should be there because they kind of feel like the movies we like The Godfather and Scarface and all of that, to give off that vibe. And then these records, even though some may be dope that Trackmasters did, um, again, sound like they're for a different album. And it sound like almost like an identity crisis because the Trackmasters and the other records that don't give off that mafioso vibe feel more like what I was hearing on the mixtapes. But what Dre was doing sounds and feels more like, okay, we have this theme for this album, and that's the direction we're going in. Um, so me in general, it's a flop in the sense of anticipation from the hip hop community. Commercially, platinum at that time, even if it was one time in hip hop, was a good thing. So
What's the
what?
success?
Yeah, it's a successful album. It's just it wouldn't have happened the second time because I don't think fans would have trusted it. Because most of us just bought it. We didn't care. Like me, I just bought it. You know what I'm saying? I just knew it was going to be great.
Yeah. I bought it as well, man. Like I said, that's during the time I was in school, and I would go to a spot called School Kids, the record store, and I would put it in my Walkman and walk back to campus and do the knowledge on it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I did with this. And I think again, it missed the mark because maybe Nas and everyone was still riding how it was written. And that track list that worked on it was written, and track master had something to do with that as well. And so maybe they thought, well, we already got a formula. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have like the firm is kind of part two of it was written. And that's the kind of way I wanted to look at it. Like that's the sequel. Let's say it was written as The Godfather 1. I'm thinking about the firm is bigger. It's supposed to be bigger than it was written because now you got AZ and Nature and Fox and everybody on there, even with all the guests. And it's supposed to be even bigger than it was written. And it's kind of like sometimes the sequel don't beat the first album. I mean, or the sequel is a movie. Sometimes the sequel is not better than the initial movie. Now, of course, The Godfather 2 is better than Godfather 1. But anyway, so, but it doesn't happen like that generally. Most times, sequels suck. That's what the boy said on this movie Scream. By
Yeah,
definition alone, sequels generally suck, right?
yeah,
So,
generally they suck.
generally
But
suck.
look, also with it was written like you saying, it was kind of like it was the first movie. The affirmative action was the first like official introduction of the firm with Foxy, AZ, Nas. I remember when they did the Apollo, and obviously
Yeah,
it was for Nas's song, but they did affirmative action, and the
they
crowd
did.
to it. I mean, I watched it several times. It was dope. So we knew, like, yo, this has to happen. This song is crazy. Phone Tap is nuts, in concept and execution.
Yeah,
So it was kind of like the hype train was unbelievable for their album to drop, man. But what do y'all think about the Firm album? Was you around listening to hip hop when the Firm album came out? What did you think about it? Did you buy it? Were you disappointed? Do you have no problem with it? Is it a flop? Isn't it? Leave your comments in the comment section below. We'd love to know what it is, man. Because this is what it's about. It's about conversation. Now, we've reached the part in the show where we recommend an album you definitely should go back and check out, regardless of whatever year it came from. My pick this week is I kind of been on a trip, like maybe the last 2 weeks, of listening to a lot of Beanie Siegel, from best of mixtapes to hands down my favorite Beanie Siegel album, and I feel like his best album, The Becoming. It dropped in 2005, right before Beanie Siegel was going to prison. And if you know me, if you listen to my podcast, or I've even said it here, when dudes get ready to go to prison, sometimes that's when you get their best shit. You know what I'm saying? Because they know they about to be locked up. But the thing with the Becoming, Beanie Siegel was always thoughtful with his lyrics. But I feel like this time, he was spitting on a couple of records, but I think this time he was extra thoughtful. Like, you listen to a record like Feel It in the Air, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
you could tell the brother is he's on a, like, if you ever seen Inception, and they like going to sleep and then in a dream going to sleep to be in another damn dream. Like, sometimes with artists, that's where you gotta go to really look outside of your life and outside of yourself and analyze the world around you, and put that into musical form where we can digest it. And all of us can relate to it. All of us have stared out of a window, you know, thinking about our lives, thinking about our situations, where we go from there, whatever the case. And I felt like Beanie Siegel sprinkled that throughout this album, along with giving you the joints you're used to as far as his lyrical skill, and then giving me personally, some of my favorite records of him. One in particular, and I've never done it, but Purple Rain, that song just doesn't get old to me. You know what I'm saying? Him and Bun B basically talking about scissor, uh, just a dope record. The joints with him and Petey Crack, joint with him and Jay-Z. Just a fantastic album from top to bottom. So many different vibes, so many different lyrical looks from Beanie Siegel that you didn't really expect. Tone 2005, Beanie Siegel, The Becoming, when it dropped. What were your thoughts?
yeah, man. I love the Becoming. Becoming is a grown man hip hop album. I enjoyed the Truth, his debut album, a lot. He has some ill songs on there, and I'm like, you know what? He's proven to be. He can be introspective when he want to be. When you think about the song "Die" on there and "What's Your Life Like," that's on the debut. So I was thinking about that going into the Becoming and everything. But the Becoming, to me, is when he became to complete MC. He put it all together on there. The beats throughout was more consistent. Feel It in the Air is one of my top hip hop songs, man. Like, I don't know where I rank it at, man, but it's an amazing track, man. It's deep, it's thought provoking. You know what I'm saying? It's vulnerable, even from a street dude. You know what I'm saying? Anytime the MC can be vulnerable, I give them extra props, because everybody want to be cool all the time, but true MCs know how to be reflect on their life. You
Mm-hmm.
know, dreams, fears, and goals, and everything like that, man. So Becoming is dope, man. Um, yeah, I think that's just probably his best album, top to bottom, and and it has replay value to this day. I like it a lot.
Yeah, man. It's one of those albums, man, that if not once, maybe twice a year, as I'm scrolling through my list of albums and I'm looking for something to listen to. It's every now and again I gotta go to it because it's just that good of an album where whereas we talked about earlier where the firm sets a certain tone and then it kind of gets derailed and then it picks up later. The Becoming has a lot of different looks, but it all feels like it's sequenced properly
Mhm.
to make you not, get bored with one style or one sound whatsoever. But Tone, what is your recommendation for this week?
All right, man. So on my side, real quick, this one hits close to home. So I'm early 2003. I'm riding to Atlanta with two of my friends, and one of my friends put a CD in and said, "Man, one of our mutual friends is in a rap group, man, down here in North Carolina Central." And I'm like, "Who is that?" He's like, "I'm gonna play this album real quick first." He plays the album, and then at one point, the producer and beat maker is talking the album. I'm like, "That voice sounds familiar." He said, "Man, that's Pat, man." I was like, "Pat from the Crib?" He was like, "Yes." He go by Ninth Wonder. I was like, "Who? This group is Little Brother?" I never heard of Little Brother before. He's like, "Nah, people don't know who they are yet." But trust me, man. So we keep on rewinding some of the tracks. I'm like, by the time I get to the end, I'm like, and it's a classic, man. Like, and not because I know the dude. I'm like, I don't know who these dudes are because I don't know. I didn't know Fonte and Pooh. I'm like, this is it's all the way through soul samples, boom bap, dope lyrics. I was like, yeah, man, this is amazing. I get back to Raleigh, I run into to Pat, he's Ninth Wonder now. We talking there. I'm like, dude, what in the world I miss out on? You know what I'm saying? And at that time, by the time I saw him again, he had played me the minstrel show one night before it came out. But back to this one, it's like I was pleasantly surprised. North Carolina hadn't had nobody who was doing this style of hip hop. Of course, at some point we had Petey Pablo, and he had more of a down south flavor, which I can rock with. But this was the coming from the school of A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Younger Brothers, Diggable Planets, which Ninth got his name from the song Ninth Wonder by Diggable Planets. That's where his name came from. You know what I'm saying? So they're the little brothers of all of that. And hearing that album just took me back to the early Low End Theory and Midnight Marauder time, and it felt so good, felt so right, and it felt even better when I started putting people on to it. Even up to this day, certain people have just heard the listening. It came out in February 2003. I
Mm.
got people I know who love hip hop who've just been hearing it over the last couple of years. And they're like, "Man, where was this at, man?" I'm like, "Yeah, this right here in North Carolina." You know what I'm saying? So the Listen is an amazing track album. The title track, The Listen, is awesome. Speed is great. Whatever You Say, Away From Me, those are some of my favorite songs on there. And just real quick, the song Speed is what Jay-Z's engineer Guru heard. He heard that and put people in touch, trying to get in touch with Ninth Wonder. And the rest is history because he the one got the interview basically with Jay and Dame to play some beats for him. I was on the phone with P outside of Baseline Studio right before he walked in. Like, yo, I'm gonna play these beats for Jay and Dame. Hey man, go do your thing, man. So it was months and months before I talked to him again. He like, man, my song made the album. And Black Album wasn't out yet. But it came from that song Speed on the listening. Pete Rock ended up hearing the album and they started going up and hanging out with Pete Rock up in New York. There's a lot of stories behind that. Questlove from the Roots said, man, he played Whatever You Say 1,000 times. You know what I'm saying? So that's when it started happening. But everything spawned off. There is no big pool of Fonte now with the foreign exchange and all the great things he's done. And that woman kind of like a legend in hip hop now with teaching at all these universities and all that. Everything started with this album, The Listening, right here in North Carolina. They made it in a dorm room in North Carolina Central.
Mm.
Fonte was on a football team. He quit the football team to rap and started doing rap battles around Durham, North Carolina, until they started working on The Listening. So there's a lot of history with this album, and a lot of things were spawned from these three guys in the dorm room making beats on a computer and writing rhymes. You
Yeah,
know, yeah,
I,
man.
I was probably more like, like people, like it didn't take me that long to get onto Little Brother. But at the time, I wasn't hosting a hip hop show, but I was executive producing it. And you know, the hosts would, you know, they were telling me like, yo, the listening, the little brother, you gotta hear this joint. It's crazy. It's like a Tribe Called Quest reborn, and blah blah blah. And it was a lot of hype, you know what I'm saying? Because it was like I couldn't escape it. And you know, I was trying to get my career like really started, you know, like I had done the on air thing. So it was kind of like, you know, all right, it's time for me to get behind the scenes and really work. So I was kind of distracted a little bit. And I remember them playing it for me real quick, and I wasn't really ready to absorb it. It didn't click until I heard the minstrel show, and then now I went back, and the listener had a whole different vibe for me. But I agree with Tone, even regardless of what's happened between the members of the group and whatever someone may think the potential was, it wasn't reached. Man, you got to go back and listen to that music, man. That music is worthy of acknowledgement today. You know, even in 2003, it was crazy because, you know, they were just such a refreshing reminder of what hip hop used to be like. Because remember, that was around the time, you know, the radio was starting to flake a little bit. You
Right.
know what I mean? And we was getting ringtone rappers. See, now we complain about the mumble rappers, but back then it was the ringtone rappers. The dudes who had the one record that would go platinum as a ringtone and they would disappear. So Little Brother coming from the South, whereas a lot of the ringtone rappers was coming from, but coming with more traditional hip hop beats and lyrics. It was just like, man, this is what we wanted. You know what I'm saying? We want evolution.
Let me say this real quick as well. Let me tell you, when the Justice League was is a group of North Carolina MCs at the time, when Lil Brother was part of, when Lil Brother first dropped the listening, people in North Carolina hated it and showed them no love.
Mm.
Like, you would think that somebody come out with a project like that, everybody would jump to them and yada yada yada. No, man, people was really, they was on other kind of rap. They did not show Lil Brother no love initially, and Pat was making a lot of beats, and he was giving a lot of beats, for cheap to a lot of local MCs all over North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? And they still wasn't supporting Lil Brother like that, man. And he trying to put no kind of artists on and stuff. They did not rock with Lil Brother, man. And it took a minute. And I think around the time the minstrel show came out and Loving It made it on BET, which that's another whole story for another day
Yeah.
about how BET and the Source and everything was doing Little Brother at the time. People wasn't showing them a lot of love, man. A lot of people caught on real late, man. But it doesn't matter for any listeners out there right now. Don't worry about it. You didn't know about it. Go to YouTube, put in Little Brother to Listening, and then put in the other work. And if you haven't heard it and you love hip hop and boom bap hip hop, especially Tribe and Daylight and all that, then you can thank us later.
Yeah, exactly. So you got some homework to do. The Listening, Little Brother, 2003, Beanie Siegel, The Becoming out of 2005. Two very dope albums, two albums you can listen back to back because they're not similar in any way, but quality lyrics, quality beats, just overall awesome albums from hip hop. What did you think about those albums if you heard it? You know, what do you know about Beanie Siegel, the old Beanie Siegel, and and Little Brother? You know what I'm saying? Leave your comments in the comment section below. That's going to do it for us for this week. We hope you enjoy this. You know what I'm saying? We hope that you not only hit that subscribe button, hit that like button to show your appreciation, but that you share this podcast with people you know enjoy this kind of hip hop content. Please know that it's not only a video version, but it's an audio version that's available via my stream of Hip Hop Now podcast. So if you subscribe to that podcast, which some people already have, you've already found it on your stream. So it's like two for nothing or whatever, because it's all free 99. But also, if you would like to get some more information on some of the artists we talked about and some other articles, you do the reading thing like some people should do. You can go to enterthedome.com. That's enterthedome.com, enterthedome.com, and you can read up on a number of articles Obviously, the link will be in the description. On behalf of Tone of IntoTheDome.com and myself, Vegas of Hip Hop Now Podcast, go out and support hip hop music and culture, because all we got is us. All right? Peace.
Peace.
Drop it on the random.